Kamen Entchev here with Tom Casselman, ready for another week of Salute Your Sports. It was a bye week last week, but we're back. Back for more basketball. The talking point the last month was college basketball. Now it's the NBA. We got the play-in games. We'll talk about who's going to win tonight, maybe who won last night, and who's going to end up making it. The Lakers' defense was on par. The Timberwolves' absolute collapse, Tom. I did catch the end of the game. I'll hit you on those updates as we go. But who's going to be in the official playoff field? One of the more odd things out there, I didn't even realize this until yesterday. The play-in stats don't count for anything. They don't count for regular season or postseason stats. So it's like the game's never even happened if you look at a guy's career numbers. So that's kind of interesting. We'll talk about NFL. OBJ to the Ravens. Could this convince Lamar Jackson to stay? Say what? I'm not buying it, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Baseball, pace of play, more stolen bases, more runs, rule changes. Is it fun? Certainly been fun for the Rays. We know that much. They haven't lost a game yet. We'll also get into our betting locks of the week, sports trivia, a quick Masters recap. John Rahm won me some big bucks this weekend. Rahm. Cannot wait to get started, Tom. 2 weeks since our last show. How you doing?
I am thriving, back from a fantastic vacation in Washington, D.C., doing a lot of historic stuff, seeing monuments, museums, and seem to have brought a little bit of that southern weather with me as I have the windows cracked open in the office. It is sunny. It is warm in Chicago, at least for a little bit. I know we're going to be dipping back down, but the city's beautiful when it is like this, and we as people are beautiful when the weather is like this as well. I feel like Bill Walton. I don't know why I'm going this route, but I am doing
don't go there, Tom.
And we starting out with the play-in games. The Bulls and the Raptors are up tonight, and the Bulls this season have been a conundrum of, I don't know if I want them to win this game and make the playoff and have their season continue at least a little bit farther, or if I'm just ready for this all to be over, because quite frankly, this team has been vexing all year long, having two players that are either stars, Nikola Vucevic and Patrick Williams. I know he's kind of alternated between starting and coming off the bench. They played 82 games this season, had a couple of Iron Men on the team, and yet the Bulls finished 40-42 on the season. Just a really weird kind of team that's never really seemed to put everything together, whereas we've got the Toronto Raptors hosting them this evening up in Canada for that 9-10 play-in game in the Eastern Conference, a team that is pretty versatile, pretty lengthy, has given the Bulls some issues. So the betting market's kind of reflecting that. As I'm looking at the number, it's about a 6-point spread between Toronto and Chicago. Kamen, do you think that's pretty indicative of how this game is going to go? A fairly comfortable, I'll say 6 points is a comfortable type of win in the NBA? Or do you think our hometown Chicago Bulls have a shot at making it a game, perhaps even advancing to the next play-in scenario?
Yeah, I've gone back and forth in this game multiple times because my mind is torn. My heart is torn. By the way, I do want to see the Bulls get in the playoffs. You know me, I'm not one for tanking. I'm not one for rebuilding. I like seeing my team in the playoffs. I know they could get a better pick, but I know the lottery balls went well with D-Rose, but I don't think they're going to go that well again. So, look, I think Toronto won, 2 out of 3 in the regular season, but they have some lengthy, like small forwards, power forwards, but they don't really have a center that can guard Vooch. This game is going to go down to, 1, does Vucevic play like the all-star he used to be? And 2, do the Bulls give him the ball enough? I think a lot of times they get very perimeter heavy. I mean, DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, maybe a little bit better players than him, but they're kind of inconsistent, and there are times where you got to feed the big man in the post. So with this Bulls team, they're so wide open. I mean, they're a team that does bad against the bad teams and good against the good teams. And the Raptors are right in the middle. So I don't know where to gauge this. You talk about Toronto winning pretty comfortably. They have won 1 game more than the Bulls during the regular season. So, no, I think my gut instinct says the Bulls are going to make this a fight. This is a 50-50 toss-up. I feel really good about Bulls +6. Not really good because they're very consistent, but good enough. Good enough to put it in betting locks of the week. Hint, hint, wink,
Ooh.
wink, nudge, nudge, tease, tease. You look at the Bulls, I kind of think of it as they got a big three in this game. They have Vooch, Levine, DeRozan. The Raptors have more of a big two, Van Vliet and Pascal Siakam. I do think the Bulls have a more talented roster. I really do. The Bulls should be better than the Raptors. This is a road game, of course. Toronto is 27-14 at home. All right, I'm going to flip a coin for the outright winner. Do we have a coin here? I don't know if I have a coin because I keep going back.
I can look that up online. I can do a virtual coin flip.
All right, you do a virtual coin flip. Bulls will be heads, Raptors will be tails for the outright winner. I'm so torn, man.
All right, instant heads or tails. Preparing to flip.
Okay.
Flipping.
What do we got?
Spinning tails.
So that's the Raptors then.
That's whatever you said. Yeah, I was half listening because I was looking that up.
All right, so I'll go Raptors with the close win. Bulls to cover 6 points. I mean, look, it's a playing game. There's one win difference between these two teams. This is going to be a close game. These playing games usually are. I mean, the Wolves-Lakers was close last night. I know the Heat and Hawks, we'll talk about that a little later, did get kind of ugly, but I think the Heat just had a really bad game. So I'm going to pick the Bulls to cover 6 points, and because the coin flip said the Raptors, I'll take the Raptors to win outright.
Yeah, for me, I think I'm leaning Raptors on this one simply because they've been more cohesive of a team all season. I mean, we've seen that, yeah, on individual talent, DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, Nikola Vucevic, they can all be really, really great talent. And sometimes they even play super well together, but they've had plenty of opportunities to play at a high level together throughout this season, and they simply haven't done it. And we've also had a number of cases of just overall, I guess, mental lapses, lack of urgency. I mean, just a couple weeks ago, the Bulls were playing the Atlanta Hawks in what was essentially a win and we clinch a spot in the play-in. Pretty much a playoff game in the regular season. Hawks beat the Bulls, and what does Zach LaVine say after the game? They wanted it more than we did. Well, if the other team fighting for the same thing that you are wanted it more than you did, and you're saying that aloud, you're admitting that, that doesn't really fill me with confidence as we are in a play-in situation where now the Bulls definitely won it, and so did the Toronto Raptors. Is this going to be another situation where the other team wanting it more? I know it's a cliche thing to say. That's not really why games are won and lost, but it speaks to the mindset. It speaks to the urgency with which these teams are kind of playing. And for whatever reason, the Bulls have had multiple times this season where they're up how many points, 10, 15, 20 points, and they lose that sense of urgency. They lose the game outright. There's been at least a handful of times that it's happened. It's been kind of a theme throughout the season. And again, like you said, Bulls have been able to rise to the occasion against better teams in the regular season. Number one, regular season is going to be different come playoff time. I don't think that's something that's going to bear out, even should the Bulls go and clinch that 8th spot in the playoffs. But
they're not beating the Bucks in a series.
They're not beating the Bucks in a series. They might not win a game against Milwaukee.
They'll win a game.
I mean, that's I don't know about that.
They'll win a game.
It's one of these things where the Bulls have just been kind of stuck in limbo ever since Lonzo Ball had that knee injury last season, and basically out all of this year, we don't know when or if he's even coming back next season, as he's scheduled to have his 3rd operation in 18 months. And this is a team that's basically just been waiting for a guy who hasn't come back. So for me, I mean, obviously, it's a one game. We've seen in the NCAA tournament, anybody can win one game. I'm leaning with Toronto on this one, though. I think that they're just a more complete team. I think that they're more, I guess, ready for the moment. I think their coaching's better with Nick Nurse. I think all the little things the Bulls have shown a lack of urgency and attention to detail on is going to be the reason that they don't win this game tonight. So as much as I don't like it, I think the Bulls are going to be having that slim ping pong chance of having that top 4 pick remain with them. Otherwise, it's going out to Orlando.
Real quick, just to counter that, just first off, Patrick Beverley coming back to Chicago native. He's kind of encouraged Zach LaVine to shoot the ball more and score more. Zach LaVine has been playing better down the stretch. That could be huge for the Bulls. And I know what you're saying kind of makes sense, but I think you're blowing it up a little bit. Like you're talking about the Raptors are more cohesive. The Bulls are a huge mess. Toronto won one more game this year. It's not like we're talking about such a massive difference in wins. The Raptors literally had one more win this entire season. And one thing to think about, yes, it's easy to say, look, the Bulls haven't had the urgency. They haven't played as hard as they can, whatever. Sometimes having a little breather, sort of that new season feel, the play-in is kind of like a breather. Maybe you reflect on some of those issues you've had, and maybe you improve them. Maybe if they do jump out to a lead, they do improve that. Maybe not. I don't know. It's a 7-8 matchup. Or no, actually, sorry, it's a
9-10.
9-10 matchup. But it definitely could go either way. I'm not super confident in either direction. I'm just saying the Bulls are going to cover because 6 points, I know it's not a lot, but I think the Bulls have a more talented team. Really, the only edge, I think, and I know home court gets a little overblown, but if I do think it's going to be a one-possession game, that Raptor crowd could make just enough of a difference. Not even so much the crowd, it's just the atmosphere of being in your own building, comfortable surroundings, no flight time, etc. So we'll see.
And with that home court, I mean, the Raptors are like
27 and 14
at home, and then the Bulls, I think, are like 17 and whatever on the road. So I think that's a little bit of the difference.
That's a little bit of the, and they've been really good lately at home, especially Toronto. But we'll see. Going to be a good game. But last night was not a good game for the Heat. The Heat dominated the Hawks in the regular season. Actually, last year the Heat were the 1 seed. The Hawks were the 8 seed. This season they're both in the play-in game. And Miami's roster is actually pretty similar to last year's team roster. I know they've had some injuries. I know Noir is the exact same, but more or less, that's the same Miami team that was a 1 seed last year. I think we can agree that they overachieved as a 1 seed last year, but I think we can also agree that they shouldn't be in this situation. They should be, I think Miami's the 4th best team in the East, right? They should be the number 4 seed, at least in the East. So really disappointing game from them last night. Obviously, the winner of the Bulls game would play the Heat. Bulls-Raptors plays the winner of the Heat, or rather they play the Heat, who lost against the Hawks. Winner of that game makes the playoffs. Hopefully that made some sense. Holy cow, that's a mouthful. The Heat will play the winner of the Bulls-Raptors game. I think Miami, Tom, gets it done in that game. They're also a very good home team, I believe 27 and 14. I don't see them playing, 2 horrible games, right off the bat. 13 over in the regular season at home for Miami. Jimmy Butler against potentially his former team in the Bulls, or maybe against the Raptors. I do think that we'll have the Heat advancing in that game. I think Jimmy Butler was actually he was on that Sixers team when Kawhi hit that 3 at the end to beat him in the playoffs, went on to win the finals. That could have been a Philadelphia championship team. They were that close, Tom.
Yep.
You almost forget about that series. That was a 7-game series. If not for Kawhi's 3, maybe the Sixers are the NBA champions. Who knows? With obviously the Warriors injuries. So I think the Heat are going to get the 8 seed. That's crazy. And play the Bucks potentially, not potentially, but definitely if they get the 8 seed in the first round.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most likely outcome for the Eastern Conference as well. I'm thinking, Toronto, I know I talked them up as I like them better than the Bulls in this matchup tonight. But then going up against Miami, if we're talking about coaching, Eric Spoelstra low-key is one of the best coaches in the NBA. I know for a while I kind of discounted him because it's, you're coaching the big 3 of LeBron and Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, and you can't help but have good results. But then seeing what he has done post-LeBron era has been really, really impressive. And yeah, that was a great comeback from Quinn Snyder and Trae Young and DeJounte Murray and everybody on the Atlanta
Quinn
Hawks.
Snyder.
But I think, if anybody has the culture and the fortitude to withstand a collapse like that, I think the Miami Heat absolutely can do so. So I see them as getting that 8th spot as well. And being probably a bit more of a difficult challenge than Milwaukee otherwise would have liked to face
Mm-hmm.
in this scenario. I'm sure that they would have rather the Heat kind of like got that sixth spot, and maybe Brooklyn is sitting
Seven spot.
in the play-in game situation. So that they have kind of their pick of Brooklyn or Toronto. I mean, Miami's going to be a tough, tough out for the Milwaukee
Mm-hmm.
Bucks. So we might actually see something that we haven't seen in quite a while should that happen. But of course, they do have to show up and win against the winner of that Toronto Chicago game. Of course, I think we both have Toronto on that one.
Hey,
So
the coin
I'll
has
be
Toronto.
the coin has Toronto. Kamen has not yet
Yes.
made up his mind.
Yes.
But yeah, in terms of kind of like talking about culture and collapses, we'll get to that in a couple of segments because we also have another Western Conference play-in game tonight. The Thunder of Oklahoma City going up against the New Orleans Pelicans. This is another one where it's a fairly comfortable spread for the Pelicans. The betting markets seem to like Nola on this one. Do you comment, or do you see Oklahoma City making a little bit of an upset here?
No, it's kind of like a feeling with the Pelicans. I've actually watched them a few times. They're a very streaky team. They have some really good players. I mean, Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, they get going. Obviously, they're a very talented team, actually. The Pelicans, I think, are actually maybe a little bit better than their record. I
Hmm.
actually think they win this game pretty comfortably. Speaking of playoff experience, 4-2, to use a Tom Casselman word. And I know what that means, Tom. I think CJ McCollum is going to play really good in this game and the next game. Now, he's a guy who's been there, done that in the playoffs with the Blazers. Brandon Ingram is a very talented player, very underrated player. When we talk
Hmm.
about some of the best players in the league, Brandon Ingram is a very, very good player, a very solid game. And they got some good shooters around them. They got a pesky team. Gilgeous Alexander is a fantastic player. Giddy, a young, talented player. Their role players around them are not very good. I think you look at McCollum and Ingram, they got better players around them. They're at home where they're great. I think that the Pelicans actually, my gut feeling says that they're going to roll in this game. Weird. They're also 27-14 at home. Hopefully, I'm writing my stats down right because a lot of these teams are 27-14 at home this year. But this, to me, Tom, is going to be probably the biggest blowout in any of the play-in games. I think the Pelicans might win by double digits. I don't know what the final was in the Hawks Heat game, but I feel it's kind of a feeling they're a better team. They're at home. They're not much better. Obviously, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander gets hot. Anything can happen. So it's a little bit stat-based, a little bit eye test-based, but more than anything, it's just a feeling. I think New Orleans is going to completely roll in this game. I don't think the Thunder will be close personally.
Hmm. Yeah, this strikes me as this is kind of like I'm not like a super huge fan of this whole play-in game scenario. I mean, I
Oh,
know
I
more
love it.
competitive basketball is fun, and I'll get to later on in the show why it's ultimately a futile exercise. But yeah, we're talking about teams that are in the just above the bottom third of their conference. We're talking about pretty much near the bottom of the barrel as we can get. So yeah, I think a team like New Orleans, they have this opportunity. They've been given a little bit of an extra chance. Oklahoma City really, I don't think belongs in the playoff conversation very much. I think they have some really good young talent. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is phenomenal. He's always fun to watch for that points, rebounds, assist number that he puts up because he is so
Casselman
talented
player prop.
across. Yeah, I don't think that particular one's going to be making an appearance later in
Okay.
the show, but a different one will. So yeah, I mean, this Oklahoma City team has been kind of gearing for the future for a little while now. They certainly have a lot of different assets to try to make some moves at some point. They have good young pieces. It's simply not ready to come together for a playoff run just yet. So I think it'll be a somewhat good experience against New Orleans, but New Orleans, like you said, has been here, has done that before, and they just have, you know, big boy players more than Oklahoma City does, quite frankly. And I think that we're leaning much the same way because I'm going to use this as a tie-in to the next game of the winner, the Pelicans and the Timberwolves. I mentioned earlier about how the Heat have the culture, they have the players, the fortitude to withstand a collapse that they had against Atlanta. Minnesota had a bit of a collapse as well. I'm not so sure that they are going to be able to withstand their own collapses. I mean, we've got Jaden McDaniel punching a wall, and I might have to look up the percentage on this one, but I'm pretty sure when it comes to man versus wall, the wall's got a winning percentage well
The
over
wall
500.
always wins, baby. You can't beat the wall. Also not a good idea to punch your own teammate, Rudy Gobert. I'm
Well,
looking
maybe don't
at
be
you,
calling
Rudy.
him a. I'm actually see. So for the Rudy Gobert thing, like, yeah, he lost his composure, but like when your own teammate is calling you something, like I get tempers flaring, and I would have preferred that he stood up with the punch as
Maybe he
opposed
should
to
have
doing
punched the
that
wall instead.
do that swing and like float back type of thing. But he went go gadget.
You sound like a boxing critique analyst, Tom Casselman.
Well, it's one of those things where Kyle Anderson called him a name. I'm not going to repeat it. Um, Rudy Gobert took a swing, but then Rudy Gobert also like took a step back. He did that thing where he let his teammates pull him back. The whole like, hey, hang on to my shirt, let me at him, let me at him, let me at him type of thing, where
Yeah.
you're putting on a show, but you don't really mean it all that way. You're not ready for all of the smoke, as some folks say. I would
Sure.
have preferred that, you throw the punch and then you stand up for it, you stand behind it. Somebody calls you a name. There are better, more sophisticated ways of handling that sort of thing. But I understand in the moment, I don't blame him for throwing a punch. It's the long way to the short point. But
Yes.
it just kind of shows how the Timberwolves are crumbling here with a shot at the playoffs and like a really talented team. I mean, Anthony Edwards has proven to be a revelation in the NBA as a
Terrible last
fantastic
night.
scorer.
Terrible. One
Terrible
of the
last
worst
night.
performances I've ever seen by a young star in a big game. I was
Absolutely.
I know it's one game, but he just let me down last night. And I was cheering for the Lakers. I had money on the Lakers, but it was just so sad to see Anthony Edwards play so bad.
Yeah, I mean he's had fantastic runs this year. I mean, yeah, ran bad in one game. I mean, I think he can obviously get it back for another one. But this kind of feels like the Timberwolves are coming apart and unraveling at the seams. Doesn't it seem that way to you?
I think so, and I'm not even gonna list necessarily the incidents with the wall, the teammates. There's a lot. Anthony Edwards, by the way, have it up on my phone. He was 3 for 17 last night, 0 for 9 from the floor on threes.
Yeah, I don't think
The
that's
guy,
gonna cut it.
that guy, because so here's the issue with the Timberwolves. They're kind of in like a weird spot because they have two guys who are kind of close. Like, is he the star? Is Towns the star? He's been a little bit better this year. Maybe he's the star, but if he doesn't have it going, they got to feed Karl Anthony Towns the basketball. Towns had 12 shots last night from the field. He was 8 of 12. The man was cooking. Feed Karl Anthony Towns the basketball. I mean, the Timberwolves had something like one field goal the last 5 minutes against the Lakers of regulation. They had like one field goal in overtime or something. They had so many turnovers. They were completely dominating that game, and they blew the game. I mean, if you watch the game, Tom, I watched almost the entire fourth quarter. I listened to the post-game analysis, everything. Lakers played some good defense. That's the impressive thing with the Lakers. Their defense is getting better with their new lineup, but it wasn't that the Lakers came back and won this game. The Timberwolves blew the game. They had 16 points, I think, in the fourth quarter. Let me look it up. I got my phone for stats here. I think they had 16 points. 16 points in the fourth quarter, Tom. That's inexcusable in an NBA game. We have teams scoring 120, no problem.
Wasn't there like an 8-minute stretch, 8.5-minute stretch where the Timberwolves didn't score at all in an NBA game?
At least like 5, something like that. In this game last night.
It was pretty lengthy that they had a drought.
Yeah, so that's not a lead that you can blow as a team. That's pretty inexcusable. I agree with you, actually. I think they are kind of unraveling. I know they have Mike Conley, who, by the way, was the only guy who was doing anything on the court last night for them other than Karl Anthony Towns, who just never got the ball. But he's a veteran, but yeah, they don't seem like if you watch the game and you watch some of the post-game coverage, they had so many possessions where they could have had Karl Anthony Towns going up against Reeves or Schroeder, throw the ball in the post to Karl Anthony Towns. They were hanging out on the perimeter and they were bricking threes, getting turnovers left and right. They're probably a little bit more talented than the Pelicans, but I got that New Orleans feeling, man. I think the Pelicans are going to beat the Timberwolves. Minnesota unraveling on and off the court right now. It's easy to
Mhm.
say this. It's easy for us to say this. They could easily come out. Anthony Edwards, he had a 3 for 17. He could go 15 for 25 the next game, drop 40 points,
Sure.
call us up on Salute Your Sports, say, you know what, you guys are garbage. Don't ever underestimate the Wolves. But Minnesota actually not a particularly great home team this year either, which is weird because I think they were in the play-in game like last year, and that home field atmosphere did help them. But they were not a great home team. Again, a little easier to pull it up on my phone than the computer here. Let's see. Their home record was 22-19. So it's not like going to Minnesota's, a guaranteed win. So, yeah, I got the Pelicans. We got to pick an upset somewhere. There's got to be an upset somewhere. I'll pick the Pelicans to get in as the 8th seed in the Western Conference, taking down first the Thunder, then Minnesota afterwards.
Absolutely. Well, that pretty much wraps up the play-in conversation we're going to be having. I mean, the actual playoffs are going to be starting late this week, early next week. So we'll be a game or two behind when we have our next show, but certainly all of the teams that we are going to be picking to win the respective conferences, to win the NBA Finals, are all still going to be well and alive. So that's something we'll be covering next week once we have all of the teams definitively in the field. So looking forward to that as we're getting to kind of the own extended drama of the NBA playoffs, but certainly a couple of really, really fun matchups. I mean, already I know that, Sacramento, Golden State, Phoenix, and LA with the Clippers. Of course, Boston matching up against the Atlanta Hawks. We've got Cavaliers, Knicks, all sorts of really, really fun matchups coming up. Lakers, Grizzlies is going to be one that we'll be keeping an eye on as well. Steven Adams, the big man in Memphis, is out pretty much for the season. That's going to be a fairly significant impact. So, yeah, we'll be covering all of that next week and more. We'll slide now to the gridiron with a little bit of news. Right now, it's mostly lying season as teams are bringing in rookies to their different facilities for interviews. And we got NFL draft coming up in a couple weeks from now, but a little bit of a later free agency, kind of like phase 2, so to speak, of free agency signing. Odell Beckham Jr. has received a contract. He signed with the Baltimore Ravens at a $15 million deal with, I believe, another $3 million in incentives. And
show me the money.
To kind of quote how the Grinch stole Christmas, I'm puzzling and puzzling until my puzzler is sore at how Odell Beckham Jr., coming off of the significant injury that he had, is getting this level of contract and what that might mean for the Baltimore Ravens, because I highly doubt that other NFL teams were out there saying, hey, we'll pay you 14.9, and the Ravens just came over the top with a little more. It feels like a, quote, overpay, and I put that in quotation marks because I kind of don't like that kind of contractual talk around players. I mean, everybody is worth what their purchaser will pay, or everything is worth what his purchaser will pay, so to speak. But OBJ to the Ravens, does that have any bearing on what Lamar Jackson might be doing in terms of returning or not?
First off, I'm a little bit torn on this deal because I think OBJ, you look at him when he was healthy, he was a top 3 or 4 receiver in the game. I mean, the history of the National Football League, Tom Casselman, first 2 seasons to start a career until a certain man named Justin Jefferson came along. OBJ had the most receiving yards in the first 2 seasons of an NFL career. He was making crazy one-handed catches. He was literally maybe the best receiver in football. The Browns injury slowed him down a little bit, but he was very good for the Rams. I mean, look, they would not have won the Super Bowl without him. He got a lot of key plays, including a touchdown in the Super Bowl itself. I'm a little bit torn on this deal for the Ravens. Here's why, because I think that they may have paid a little bit more than anyone else would. I kind of agree with you. But at the same time, though, if you can get even remotely close to the prime OBJ, it's a 1-year deal. That's the good thing about them. It's a 1-year deal. They're not committing long-term. If it doesn't work out, you eat a little bit of cash, but it's for 1 year. The irony behind it is, though, that they don't want to give Lamar Jackson a big deal because he's got injuries, and then in comes OBJ with the deal. There are some rumors out there that Lamar helped make this happen. I don't know. I'm not in the organization, my gut feeling says that it's almost kind of a slap in the face to Lamar because you're paying this receiver who's literally coming off a pretty severe injury that he missed like the entire season. I mean, Lamar missed parts of the last 2 seasons, but OBJ was not there at all this last season. So I just kind of get the feeling that the Lamar Ravens, and again, I could be wrong. There could be a change of heart. Maybe seeing OBJ another target does help him. We're not in there. We don't know. I'm not in Lamar's head. But my gut feeling says that relationship is beyond repairable. I mean, if you even look at the timing of when he dropped that tweet about, the contract, requesting the trade, right when Harbaugh's press conference is going on. I mean, that was intentional. Lamar's not happy, man. The only way that, and if they put the franchise tag, I think they could still negotiate until something like, I think July, because I was just reading about Saquon. They do have some time to renegotiate that deal. If the Ravens commit, then they can keep Lamar. But unless they change their mind completely, it doesn't look like it's going to happen. I think that Lamar will not be in a Baltimore Raven uniform next season. I don't know who's going to be throwing the ball to OBJ, but I don't think it's going to be Lamar Jackson personally. So interesting move. Also a little bit surprised because, I don't know. There was a lot of rumors OBJ going to the Cowboys, even some OBJ to the Chiefs, which would have been very interesting for him. I don't think the Ravens are quite there. I think they're kind of that team that is, and I don't like losing. I don't like tanking. I don't believe in that type of atmosphere. But the Ravens are in that group of teams that is good, above average. You're a playoff team, but you're not really a true Super Bowl contender. Their defense has definitely gotten worse the last few years. I know we talk all about Lamar. Can he win the game because of being a passing quarterback? But that Ravens defense is nowhere what the Ravens used to be. That's the identity of the football team. Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, all these guys. Baltimore is not good enough to win the Super Bowl. They might get Patrick Mahomes in there, which they won't, obviously. But I'm just saying, hypothetically, they even bring in the best player of all time. They're probably still not going to win a Super Bowl. So they're kind of in a tough spot right now. And I don't think this is going to do enough to move the needle, so to speak, in the Lamar situation personally.
Yeah, the thing that will convince Lamar Jackson to stay is giving Lamar Jackson the contract that he wants, that he feels he has earned, or at least reaching some sort of compromise between what you want to pay and what he wants to be paid. And listening to you kind of like lay it out, it sounds like you might have a little bit of a sore puzzler as well, because it doesn't make a ton of sense in terms of, we don't want to commit all of this money. And I understand there's a difference between a 1-year deal for a receiver at that high value as opposed to a multi-year contract for a quarterback. I get that there's differences in the contracts themselves, but to make all the different talking points, I don't think the Ravens themselves have made, but there's lots of mouthpieces around the NFL that are willing to talk about it. And certainly we've talked about it as well, that, injury issues with Lamar, it's been a little bit of time since his peak. Well, those things are also true for Odell Beckham Jr. As far as, you mentioned his first 2 seasons, he's on year 8 of the NFL. If we're looking at if we do like, hey, player A, player B, player C, and look at the different numbers, would we actually pick Odell Beckham Jr. as being the big name that he is, if not for the fact that he's a big name that we remember? Are there other receivers that might be more effective? So, yeah, basically, I would say, Odell Beckham Jr. being on the team, that is the pine-scented air freshener to the car. What you need is that car. You need that deal for Lamar Jackson. You're not going to get him to say yes or no on a Lamborghini because you're throwing that little thing to dangle off the rear view mirror. So
I like it, Tom. Analogy Casselman.
That's how I'm feeling on the Odell Beckham Jr. Deal to the Ravens. Might it help a little bit? Yeah, but paying him his money, that's what's going to make it stick.
Show me the money, Jerry. Show me the money. He was asking Jerry Jones for the money, but Jerry Jones didn't give it to him. Real quick, Tom, I didn't put this in the rundown, but I do want to address it real quickly. Did you see the Tyreek Hill news?
yeah, that he wants to be, do a couple more years and be out at that point,
Yeah,
right?
that was interesting. That was very interesting.
Hmm.
Almost makes you think, like, why did he not come back to the Chiefs? Because the whole thing of like he wanted more money. Kansas City didn't want to pay him money. Maybe he knew he was on his way out in a couple of years. I actually even saw a thing at it was actually an autograph showing, ironically, and my company was there actually. But I don't know if you saw the clip that he was talking to the Browns, but the Browns wouldn't pay what the Dolphins would pay. So
Wow.
it almost sounds like Tyreek Hill is kind of like ready to hang it up, and he kind of went on this contract wherever he would get paid the most money. Which, to be
Well, and
honest, I mean, who are we to
Miami's a pretty good
judge?
spot to get paid.
The taxes too, right? Maybe
Hmm.
that's why he went there. The taxes are
Oh,
better
and
in
also the
Miami.
gorgeous weather.
Yeah. So it's safe to say Tyreek Hill is ready for that next step beyond his pro career. By the way,
Hmm.
Tyreek Hill has made the Pro Bowl every season he's played. If he retired today, he would 100% be in the Hall of Fame, no question about it. So good on the Cheetah. Just a little fun note. And one, again, total rumor, absolute
Hmm.
rumor. I don't even know if Adam Schefter's put it out there, but just something I read on the interwebs. Derrick
Yeah.
Henry for potentially being pursued by the Cowboys.
Okay. It's
Yeah, it just says
weird.
I'm interesting, right? And they're not ready for Tony Pollard. They got rid of Zeke. Could Derrick Henry be next? Be a lot of fun.
NFL's a weird, wacky
It's a
place.
it's a weird, wacky place. I'm just
So,
spitting rumors out there. Spitting rumors out there, Tom Casselman. Could be a lot of fun. We'll talk plenty about the draft. I think it's going to
mhm.
be in 2 weeks from now because I know,
April 27th is the draft.
yep.
It's the
So
first day of the draft, I should say.
correct. So I think we have a show the day before. We'll talk about it the
Hmm.
week before, the week after.
I'll have my locks as well.
Yeah, there you go. Your locks of who's going to get drafted where. There's a lot of interesting drama there because the drama was that CJ Stroud was going to be number one. Reports now say that it could be Bryce Young. Their betting market
Hmm.
is about even. So that'll be
Yep.
a great talking point. But I know ESPN, their daily show, they want to bring Mel Kiper on at any point. We're going to talk about it in a couple weeks. I don't want to rehash the
Absolutely.
same talking points, but just want to know that we're not ignoring the draft. I know a lot of folks are interested. We'll have plenty on the draft in 2 weeks and in 3 weeks. Cannot wait. Bryce Young, the best player in the draft. Keep that in mind. Whoever drafts him, Bryce Young is the future, baby. That's all I'll say.
Well, another thing that is the future of a sport is baseball with its multiple rules. We talked about it a couple of weeks back as we were preparing for the season, and additionally when the rules were initially announced. And as far as we're seeing across the league, the rules are having the intended effect
Mm-hmm.
that they were meant to have, which is kind of an interesting thing. We haven't really seen a ton of unintended consequences just yet. Well, there is one, and I'll touch on that. It's kind of baseball adjacent,
Okay.
but pace of play is up. Games are about a half hour shorter than they were in seasons prior. We're seeing more steal attempts as the bases are a little bit bigger. There is a limit to the number of times that a pitcher can make a pickoff move toward a base. And then I'm blanking on the other one, the shift. The shift has been banned again. That's the one that I dislike the most because it rewards one particular type of hitter over a different particular type of hitter. But on the whole, it seems like everybody's pretty happy with the pace of play on the games. Kamen, is this good for baseball? Um, do you like what the rule changes are so far and how the impact that's had on the game?
I had a very interesting discussion at work on this. I host the Sports Memorabilia podcast. We talk a lot of sports, obviously. Also had a talk with my girlfriend about it. I was explaining to her exactly what it is. And this was a very interesting sticking point that I actually had.
Hmm.
I think it helps for watching a game on TV, but actually it might make it worse in person because, you pay that money, you want to spend enough time at the ballpark. So it is I was kind of thinking, I was like, that makes sense. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It depends on where you are. It does seem like it's working. I've watched some baseball, but obviously I'm very busy. I work a lot of nights and
Hmm.
weekends. I have caught some White Sox, some Cubs, a couple national games, but not watched an entire 9 inning game. Haven't had the time. I
Hmm.
have, of course, watched an entire basketball game, though. So again, I would still watch, basketball a little bit over baseball personally, but it does seem like it's working. It does seem like, fans are enjoying it. The players are enjoying it. There's really not complaints by the players. That's where you look at that. I mean, there may be one few and far between, but as a whole, the players haven't said anything. And it does seem like it's working. I mean, I think the stolen base thing to me is actually the coolest part of it. Not even so, I mean, the pace of play I think helps. I do agree with you. The one that I don't like is the shift. A little torn there, but I lean towards your side. But I think the stolen base thing is fun. It's not only about like pace of play, it's about action. Getting more action in baseball, seeing stolen bases. That to me is the biggest improvement in the rule change, even more so than the pace of play. So overall, I like it. I gotta, as we get to the summer, maybe get a little bit less busy, a little bit less sports. I'm gonna try to do it here in the coming weeks. Sit down and watch a 9-inning game if I have time. Then I can truly tell you exactly how I feel about it. But so far, so good for me. I think one team that is enjoying it is the Rays. They haven't lost a game. They're 11-0 right now, something like that. I think they've had like one game decided by one run. Tampa Bay Rays are off and rolling. I know it's fluky. It's 10, 11, whatever, 12 games in. But Tampa Bay seems to be doing mighty good. Forget that small payroll. Doesn't matter. The Rays are rolling.
Yeah, no, I think that the rule changes are all doing really nicely for the game. I myself have listened to games on the radio, and they're flying through pretty quickly. I think that's a good pace for like we're kind of like in the middle a little bit. Like there's the older fans kind of in that 40, 50, 60 midlife kind of demo that's used to baseball being, like you mentioned, that longer form, more pastoral. This is what we're doing for an afternoon type of game. And basically the bet that baseball has made and so far is winning is that those folks are going to be here no matter what. It's the 30 somethings. I mean, we're 30 years old as well, but like it kind of feels like we're a little bit more older soul on
we're getting
that front,
old.
but it's for like the 20s, the teens, the kids. I remember growing up, there'd be a lot of times where my folks would be like, all right, it's getting late. We got to get you guys home, get you to bed, where we're leaving in the 7th inning type of thing. Even though I would want to stay for the entire game because the game would go, a pretty decent amount of time. So I think that this is actually really beneficial, whether you're, taking the family to the ballpark or watching at home. And we see games that start like 7 o'clock at night. Well, these games can actually wrap up in like a reasonable bedtime hour, so to speak. So I think that baseball is really, really targeting that younger audience because they kind of realize how far behind they are, the NFL and the NBA on that front. I think some of the unintended consequences, the one that is kind of concerning me primarily, and I think it was like earlier this week or last week, I saw a report that concessions and sales around the ballpark were actually at a break-even point from this season to last season, kind of suggesting that the extra hour or extra half hour, give or take, of time at the ballpark didn't actually bear out from a financial perspective in terms of how much money teams are making on concessions and memorabilia. Because by that point, how many fans are tapped out? How many fans are saying, hey, I've been here 3.5, 4 hours, if you're including pregame. I want to get home. I'm done with this. I'll catch it on the radio. I'm going to beat traffic, all that stuff. So it's a break even, but of course, teams want to be making money. And this is something where I have an issue. Beer sales are now being extended to the end of the 8th inning as opposed to the 7th. And I think that's a bit of a problem, of course, because of public safety, because we're going to have folks that, if a game's a half an hour short, that means that a game's ending, 30 minutes after you've had last call on beer. That's not nearly enough time to, quote, sober up. Some would argue that the 7th inning even isn't enough time to sober up in the old way of doing things. But I'm taking a bit of a jaded, cynical perspective on that one, where teams are now making an incorrect move in the sake of getting more money, that they're extending beer sales because the games are ending so quickly. So that's an unintended consequence that I don't like about this situation. But beyond that, everything on the field, I think has been a success for baseball. I know that's a little bit statement of the weeky right there, but I had to throw that in.
No, you're good. A couple of things to counter to that. So first and foremost, Tom Casselman, I have a personal rule.
Yes.
And Drew Brackett, one of our former co-hosts.
he's got that early bedtime. I know.
He's got the early bedtime, but I have a rule that, now, of course, when I was a TV sports reporter, I would have to leave games early because I had to go shoot another game, get back, edit my highlights. But if I'm attending a game as a fan, I will never, ever, 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 under any circumstances, ever, never, ever leave a game early. Never.
Mm-hmm.
I paid money for it. I mean, I'm a night owl, of course. This whole 10 o'clock bedtime thing means nothing to me, but I would never leave a game early. It's a complete waste of money, and I'm there for the whole game. Actually, I remember going to a Mizzou game.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was our sophomore year in college. I think you were a freshman at the time.
Yep.
Drew and I went to a game. It was, Aaron, Drew's former roommate.
Sure.
I think Drew, Aaron,
Mr.
and I
Rose,
were at a game together. And this happened to me freshman year with my dorm roommates, too. They wanted to leave in the third quarter. Drew and Aaron left. I stayed alone to watch the game alone because I will not leave a game early. I enjoy sports. I enjoy the atmosphere. I paid money for this. I will never leave a game early, no matter what. That's a personal rule. The second thing about baseball, I'm going to say this. Baseball's had some issues. Some of it is advertising. Some of it is, of course, these strikes. They could have come back early for COVID. But baseball isn't as managed as poorly as we think. Baseball is sort of like they've gotten in trouble with the circumstances of how people consume product. Because I'll be completely honest with you. When I was a young kid in middle school, in high school, I was a Cubs and Sox fan growing up. These were 3-hour games, Tom. I would try to watch every single Cubs and Sox game of the year. I didn't catch everyone, but I watched counting like Sox, Cubs, counting the primetime games, the playoffs. I consumed over 300 baseball games in a year, and the vast majority, I watched every single pitch. I couldn't get enough of it. I loved it. And the game was not all that different last year than it was when I was a kid. It's just that when you get busy, you kind of prioritize. And a part of it, though, is life, but it's also the way we have highlights, the way we have betting, the way we have internet, the way we have fantasy. Now, there's very easy access right now to get the quick highlight of the game. Even if you log on to a given app, you can see the home run replay of Tim Anderson, for example, who's injured right now. I'm sorry, Tom. Tim Anderson goes down again. You can actually see all of the key plays on your cell phone. Look at Messi. What a beautiful boy. That's my dog. Love him. You can see all the key plays on your cell phone. You can watch them on SportsCenter. You can actually have fun tracking a game by live betting it, because I've done that. I've had fun. I've had not so much fun either, depending on the result. So baseball just has these things going against it. Basketball is just a little bit shorter than baseball. That helps basketball. And football, part of it is football is just so few games. Football is so few games. Baseball is 162. It doesn't have that whole feel. Like football's just as long as baseball, even longer many times. People don't complain about football because it's like a 1 day a week, 2 day a week type thing, and every game matters. So some of it isn't so much that baseball necessarily needs to fix so many things it's been doing wrong. It's just the way society now consumes sports. So just something to think about, because I know we sit here rallying off like baseball is not doing this, not doing that, and they could do better. They could certainly market their superstars better. Certainly the COVID times, they should have came back sooner, but some of it is just life. Some of it is just life. We got the dogs here in the room. I think one of them farted. Let's be real.
Oh, fun.
That's always fun. But that's just my.
It's a good thing we don't have 5 cents media yet. That'll be in the future at some point.
Yeah, in the future. Just something to think about, because it's very easy to say that baseball is boring. It's not as good, but maybe like as we get busier in life, our attention span and our time and just the way we can consume product just changes. It's not so much that baseball messed up. It's just that the way sports content is consumed is just so much different. Because, I mean, the ratings are actually down across all sports. I know baseball has been hit the most, but ratings for some of these games, I mean, are not as high just in general.
Absolutely. Well, one of the main events of the sports calendar, the Masters, first time that Jon Rahm has won the Masters. I know that he's typically a favorite atop of the betting boards just about for every single tournament. Actually came through, and like I wasn't able to watch much of the tournament, but
I watched it.
looking at the scores, I mean, to me, a four-stroke lead, that makes it sound like it wasn't particularly close going down the home stretch, kind of reminiscent of Scotty Scheffler last year, where it was a little bit fait accompli. That as we got farther and farther along, that less and
What's
less
fait
likely that we'd be
accompli
having
again?
fait accompli. Let me look up the
Can
definition
I
on
get the
that.
language of origin? This is my Tom Casselman word of the day today. Shaquille O'Neal last night said a word. It was dismantlization. He made it up. Dismantlization of the Timberwolves.
Let's see. So fait accompli, I think translated from French, it means literally an accomplished fact. So I think
Mm.
it used in that particular context, it's something that the outcome was pre-decided,
Okay,
predetermined type of thing. But I don't know,
sure.
maybe it was closer, but by the looks of it, I mean, John Rahm finishing -12 on the tournament, Brooks Koepka, Phil Mickelson tied for second at 8 strokes under. Didn't seem particularly close as Rahm finally winning one.
So I did actually watch it. You know, golf is not my favorite sport, but I love watching the Sunday at the Masters. I mean, it's the biggest tournament, the last day. And I was actually, so we had the early show off work for Easter. We did have a 7 p.m. show, but I was at my girlfriend's family's party. And, you know, her uncle's a huge golf fan. His neighbor's a huge golf fan. All these guys do is golf. That's the literally their life. So they're watching the Masters, and rather than hanging out with the women and gossiping, you know, I'm a sports guy. So I sit down and watch the Masters with him. I actually put money down on Rahm because he was one shot back of
Mm.
Brooks Koepka early in the final round. So I put some money down. I was very invested. I wanted Rahm to win. The front nine was really close. Look, he was up 1, up 2. It's really like the back nine when he got to about 12 or 13 where he pulled away, got up 3 strokes, then he got up 4. But he was very, very good in the last round, shot 3 under. Mickelson, by the way, my goodness, he shot like a 65. Jordan Spieth shot a 66. Phil wasn't even in the lead group. So the fact that he
Mm.
did so good was just a late charge. It was Koepka and Rahm right there neck and neck. Koepka was the leader for most of the tournament. So John Rahm was very clutch, very composed. He didn't make any mistakes. He made a few birdies, but he wasn't bogeying. He was doing what he had to do. It was a very workmanlike effort for John Rahm. Brooks Koepka's a live golf guy. I'm not a live golf fan. So I was personally very excited for John Rahm, both because I bet on him and because he took down Koepka. And he got the number 1 ranking in the world, by the way. He was number 3 entering the tournament.
Mm.
He won the Masters, moved up to number
That'll
1.
do it for you.
He's also a huge Ted Lasso fan. Another reason I like John Rahm. Seems like a super nice guy. He's kind of becoming my favorite golfer along with Jordan Spieth. Adopted golfer, so to speak, Tom Casselman. So good on Rahm. Look, sports is amazing because sports is a lot about mental strength and focus. And golf, again, not my favorite sport, but I love the final round of a major. That's really like if I have time, if I'm not working, if I'm not busy, I like to tune in on the Sunday afternoon of a major, specifically the Masters. It was definitely a very, very fun end to that event. And John Rahm did earn it. The best golfer in the world, Mr. Rahm.
All right. Well, congrats to the Spaniard achieving one of the great sports accomplishments of the calendar. Moving into betting locks of the week. Kamen, what's the recap?
Yeah, so it's been a few weeks. If I list off the scores, you'll know it's been a few weeks. Regular season basketball, I went 1-2. I had Grizzlies -4 over the Clippers. Clippers winning 141-132. I did have the Suns -4.5 over the T-Wolves. Suns winning 107-100. Did have a massive bet on that game. Cashed in one handsomely. Got me to up on the ear against DraftKings at the time. Blazers Kings.
Oh, at the time, is it no longer the case?
So I got up to about. I'm now down $12 on the ear. I was up 12. Okay. Now I'm down 12. I would say through April. That's pretty good. Now After my picks tonight, I'll be back in the green. So that's how it works. Ups and downs. At the time, though, that's the bet that put me like up on the ear, and then, goes back and forth, back and forth. John Rahm put me up big. And then last night, the Heat definitely did not do me any favors. Thanks, Miami. I did recoup my Lakers, though, with the live in-game bet.
There you go.
So Lakers money line when they're down like 7 paid off. Anyways, Blazers Kings over 235. I missed this one badly. The Blazers just couldn't score. I didn't factor in for all the injuries, so I was 1-2. Good week for you. You were 2-1. UConn minus 5.5 over Miami. Correct. UConn winning by 13. You had FAU, San Diego State under 131.5. That was wrong. 72-71. And actually, what was the other one? Did I not copy and paste right? I only have 2 of them written down.
Now, let me see. North Texas in the NIT. I had them +2. They won.
That's right.
The National Invitational Tournament.
North Texas, baby. So this week, what you got, Mr. Casselman?
All right. So this week, I think I'll go with an NBA card. As I mentioned, I have a player prop, but it might not be the one that you think. Give me Kobe White for the Chicago Bulls over 9.5 points. The way that the Toronto Raptors have been kind of playing the Bulls this season is throwing a lot of double teams at Zach LaVine, a lot of double teams at DeMar DeRozan. And Kobe White is one of really the only other good shooters on the team, not named Zach LaVine when we're talking about three-point shooting. So I think there's going to be plenty of opportunity for him to get over that number. He's only played 1 game against the Raptors this year. But I think that he'll be a little bit of that, insta offense, just add water off the bench for the Bulls tonight. Also tonight, I'll go with the New Orleans Pelicans minus 5.5. I think just clearly the more talented team, like we mentioned. And then I don't know which one I want to go with. I'm going to tell you both.
Okay.
And based on your reaction, that might determine what I ultimately go with.
We're probably going to fade my reaction.
So we've got the playoffs starting on the 15th. I could go Kings -1 over the Warriors, picking the short favorite, or I might go Grizzlies -3.5 over the Lakers. I'm wondering which one seems more preposterous. I'm not really buying into the Lakers. I know that they have some pretty good defense. I know that they have LeBron James, but the Grizzlies also have good defense, and they have some pretty good offense to go along with it as well. So give me the Grizzlies -3.5 over the Lakers as my last pick. Although the Kings, interestingly enough, I know we talked about perhaps fading them out of that 3 spot in the Western Conference. That never came to fruition. Maybe the Kings are a little bit more real than we suspected, but I'm not willing to put, especially in such short odds, -1. I don't know if I'm willing to pick the Kings just yet.
Call me biased. I'm a Curry and LeBron fan.
Oh, yeah.
I think the Warriors and Lakers are both winning those first-round matchups. Talk about teams
the whole series?
Done that. Oh, yeah. Golden State over the Kings, 6 over 3. Lakers 7 over the Grizzlies as a 2. I'll have more on that later in the show. Lakers will win that series, Tom. They will cover 3.5. They will win game 1. I completely disagree on that pick. How's that for betting locks? To be fair, I told you this. Whenever I pick a bet, whenever I pick it on the show, it doesn't do as good. My picks not on the show tend to do better. So take that for what it's worth. This week, I'm feeling good. It's 1:45 on a Wednesday, April 12th. You can confirm this, right, Tom? 1:45 p.m. Central Time.
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to have some fun. I know I used to do this a lot. I'm going to bring it back. I'm going to go with the game that's about to start. It's not started yet. I know by the time the show gets posted, it'll probably be too late. But I'm going to go ahead and pick Real Madrid and Chelsea over 2.5 goals. I think it's at like -115 on DraftKings. So Chelsea's been struggling mightily. I mean, they've been struggling a lot. I know Real Madrid is usually the team that comes from behind, gets the late goals. My gut feeling right now is Real Madrid jumps out to an early lead. Chelsea's forced to attack early, and it opens up the floodgates. It is going to be goals galore. 2.5 is not that many. I think it'll be 3 goals or more. Give me Real Madrid, Chelsea over 2.5. This game kicking off in about 14 minutes, Tom. Just getting it in before it starts. This makes me feel good. I'm going up against the betting locks champ. I'm going to go Pelicans minus 5.5 over the Thunder. Young OKC team, not ready for this stage. I did talk about it earlier. Just a gut feeling. CJ McCollum, a guy who's been in multiple playoff games, a guy who's, had the NCAA tournament upset against Duke. He's going to have a huge game tonight. I think Brandon Ingram, speaking of Duke, former Duke guy, he'll have a big game tonight. Pelicans, a great home team. They should win by 6 or more. No problem against OKC. And lastly, we're going Homer, baby. Bulls plus 6 at the Raptors. This is going to be the Vooch game. Nikola Vucevic gets utilized in this game. I know the Raptors don't really have a dominant center. I mean, I think this guy's going to get in the post today. They're going to give him the ball. He's going to have a huge game. The Bulls are going to cover 6 points. Again, I'm torn on who's going to win the game, but with the 6-point cover, give me the Bulls plus 6. They show up in a game that everyone, including you, thinks they should lose. That's what they've done all season long. Defy the odds. Bulls get the cover plus 6 in Toronto on the road. I don't care. Chicago's getting it done, Tom.
Sounds good. Well, that brings us to trivia. And for me, I don't really have a trivia question so much as a trivia story. And this is actually courtesy of my mom, who pointed me in the direction on this one. Shout out to my mom, because she brought up a story of a double-A baseball game between the Rock City Trash Pandas.
Well, that sounds great.
And the Chattanooga Lookouts. Here's the interesting thing. The Trash Pandas threw a combined no-hitter to the Lookouts and lost 7-5.
What?
They threw a combined no-hitter and lost the game 7-5. So I'm going through.
How does that happen?
Let me see. I'm trying to find the box score. I don't know if this Athletic article has the full box score attached, but essentially it was a combination of walks and hit by pitch. Here we go. In the top of the 7th, the Trash Pandas were leading 3-0 going into the 7th inning. In the top of the 7th, the Lookouts scored 7 runs despite not registering a hit. The 7 runs were scored on 6 walks and 3 hit by pitches. The Trash Pandas scored 2 runs in the bottom half of the 7th, but it was not enough to beat the Lookouts.
I've never heard of that.
I know,
that's
and
amazing.
That's the beautiful thing about baseball is that you get weird stuff like this all the time. It also reminds me of the story. Do you know Roy Wood Jr., the comedian who's guest hosting on daily shows, on the Daily Show on Comedy Central? Do you know who that is?
No, I probably do, but I probably don't recognize the name.
Yeah, he's a Cub fan. Played baseball growing up, and I remember seeing on his Twitter timeline he had a little a clip out of a youth baseball game that he played in, where they won the game on a dropped third strike that he beat the throw to first base.
Yep.
Despite his team having 19 errors. I mean, I know that's youth baseball, but that's absolutely ridiculous. That's the beautiful thing about baseball. There's so much weird stuff about it. So nice little trivia here for you.
I umpired youth baseball. I covered youth baseball in my sports career. I played youth baseball. I've seen so much of those things happen. I've seen umpiring for fifth and sixth grade baseball, Tom. I've seen a pitcher get 9 strikeouts in an inning, believe it or not. The drop third strike will get you. It will get you. It's not good. Not good. Well, funny, we both got baseball in the trivia.
Oh, nice.
I've got on Monday, Aaron Judge at the time had the 4th longest streak of reaching on base straight in Yankees history since 1940. Here's the asterisk.
Okay.
What 3 Yankee players since 1940 have reached on base more games in a row than Judge? 43 at the time on, I believe it was Monday. So one is going to be obvious. I think all 3
Joe DiMaggio.
Yeah.
So that's one. 56 game hitting.
Yeah, and he had, I think it was 70 or something in a row. Something like that. Don't quote me on that. But I think he was first. And 2 other guys, more games in a row than Aaron Judge, Yankee history.
Well, I mean, I'm going to go with another oldie but goodie. Mickey Mantle, the Yankee Clipper. Is he one?
No. So start thinking more modern Yankees.
More modern. Okay.
Very
All right.
modern. Guys that you have seen play, guys you grew up watching.
Okay. So in that case, I mean, an obvious one is Derek Jeter.
Yep.
Okay. So that's two. And you said there's one more?
One more.
Um, Bernie Williams?
Ooh, I like Bernie Williams. Good center fielder. Not Bernie Williams, though.
Not Bernie Williams. Outfield teammate Paul O'Neill,
Ooh,
perhaps.
I love Paul O'Neill. Where he kicked the ball. You ever seen that clip? Where he
Uh-huh.
kicks the ball, literally
Not
kicks it.
not a good day.
Not Paul O'Neill. No.
Not Paul O'Neill. Okay. I'm just trying to think like other classic like Yankees, like maybe Jorge Posada, but he was a catcher, so I
Ooh,
don't know if
great
he
catcher. Not Posada.
not Posada. I've seen him play. Would it be like Johnny Damon?
Not Johnny Damon. Johnny Damon, I think, is playing for the Savannah Bananas, by the way. Speaking of fun
Yeah,
baseball.
banana ball, yeah.
Did you know that? I really want to go to
I
a
did, yeah.
game. That looks like so much fun.
It definitely, yeah, it does look like an experience. This is really what
Yeah.
it's all about. Let's
Yeah.
see. Trying to think like who else it could like maybe A-Rod. Like at this point, I don't know.
A-Rod. That's
Is
it.
it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. A-Rod was really, really good. He'd have some, had some
Oh
help
yeah.
of A-Royd, as I call him, but A-Rod was such a great baseball player. So, yes, it was him. I was about to say you're right in the arrow. Just go a little bit forward, a little
Yeah.
fast forward. I was
Yeah.
waiting for you to list Scott Brocious and Tino Martinez. All
Scott
those
Brocious was
early
on my
Yankee
mind.
teams.
Absolutely.
Yeah, third baseman Scott Brocious, Tino Martinez at first. Man, some iconic names for the Yankees in that era. That's when I watched baseball all the time, Tom. I always watched baseball at that time. I could name every player on all of the contenders. So
All right.
that's a
So
good one.
statements of the week. My statement is connected to the NBA and specifically the NBA play-in. We saw just how desirable getting into the NBA play-in is when the Dallas Mavericks rested a bunch of
Oh,
people and only played Luka Doncic for 13 minutes when they
because it
had
was
an
Slovenian
opportunity.
night. That's the only reason they played him. It was Slovenian night. That's
Mhm.
the only reason they played him. He said he had to give the Slovenian fans a show.
Yeah, and he did for all of 13 out of 48 minutes of the game. I mean,
That's a bet I won. Bulls
it's
+3. They came back. Bulls +3, baby.
I mean, it just goes to highlight how frivolous this play-in scenario is that the NBA has drummed up pretty much for TV ratings for the sake of an additional game or two of home gate revenue. But in the NBA, you literally are better off not making the bottom of the playoffs than you are trying to get one of those spots that's up for grabs. Since 2012, the bottom two seeds, 7 and 8 seeds, have not won a playoff series. And in that year, 2012, that was because Derrick Rose tore up his knee and the 76ers ended up winning that series. You'd have to go back to the Golden State Warriors over the Mavericks a few years
Baron
earlier for the
Davis.
last time.
Baron Davis. Let it rain, Baron. Baron Davis.
On a game level, the record of 7 and 8 seeds against 1 and 2 seeds is 46 and 160, which is less than a 25% winning percentage. Over the past decade, 16 seeds in the NCAA tournament have advanced to the next round more than 7 and 8 seed teams have in the NBA. I understand that there is a little bit of a draw to having some more value, some more intrigue, some more excitement for these bottom teams, or I should really say these middling teams in the NBA. But quite frankly, going to these 7 game series, the difference, the chasm between the 1-2 seed and the 7-8 seed is so great that the Dallas Mavericks, a professional NBA basketball team that went out and got Kyrie Irving in a blockbuster midseason trade, decided we're better off if we're not dealing with all of this mess than we are trying to get in and trying to compete and trying to play. The NBA has a bit of a tanking problem, to be sure, but they also have a bit of a problem with this whole play-in scenario. I know why it was put into place. I know that it was meant to kind of give a little bit of an extra chance to some of these bottom teams, like I said, create a little bit of intrigue, but quite frankly, it does not matter. I know that you're going to pick the Lakers to beat the Memphis Grizzlies. You would have to go back to 1999 for the last time a 7 seed beat a 2 seed. And granted, teams are constructed a little bit differently. Resting wasn't as big of a thing. There seems to be more player injuries now than there were then. Durability is not quite as high. And granted, most 7 seed teams don't have LeBron James on them. Usually LeBron James's teams are a bit higher in seeding, but just goes to highlight the point that being a bottom seed in the NBA is not the same, quote, value to a franchise that being a bottom seed in Major League Baseball or in the NFL or in the NHL is, where making the playoffs, you literally do still have a chance to go on a run to win a title. We have not seen that in the NBA. The talent, the difference in talent is just too great. The superstars and the great teams at the top in the 7-game series just have too much of an opportunity over that larger sample size to bear out and be the better team, because your best player can impact the game so easily, being 25% of the team on the floor, as opposed to hockey where it's a smaller percentage, football where it's a much smaller percentage, that each individual superstar can kind of control a game, minus the quarterback, of course. So yeah, my statement is the NBA should, I mean, they're not going to, but they should do away with this 9-10 trying to play into the 7-8 playing game. If anything, they should probably contract. If we're going for competitive reasons only, not money at all, for competitive reasons, they should contract the playoffs, make it the best 6 teams in each conference, because we're seeing that 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 clearly don't have what it takes to make a competitive series in the first round. It just makes the first round of the playoffs boring outside of 2 or 3 potential matchups.
So I actually want to disagree completely, Tom.
Okay.
And I think
I like how you eased into that.
Yeah. I think that the league is a little bit different now. I mean, I think, like, obviously baseball is such a different sport. Like, the best team doesn't always win. You can hit a line drive right at someone. It's just different. Basketball, there's more scoring. It's a make or miss league. You are gonna, over 7 games, over a whole 48 minutes. It's just the nature of the beast, that there's going to be less upsets. But I think right now in the Western Conference specifically, it is so wide open. Like, I think any team in the tournament can win the Western Conference. It is so wide open. It hasn't been that way before. I get that. But I think the NBA is making it wide open by having something like this. I know the Mavericks are an outside example, but we saw the Lakers play LeBron and Davis on back-to-backs for the first time down the stretch because they wanted to get in this tournament. What does it mean to a franchise like the Thunder, the Pelicans? These young teams want to take the step forward. The Grizzlies, by the way, who are now a 2 seed, they first made the playoffs out of this play-in tournament. It helped boost them up. And I think it is different right now, the way the NBA is the last couple years. The way it is now is much different than how it was 4 or 5 years ago. So I'm going to call it recency bias. But right now in the NBA, everyone has a chance to win in the West. I mean, even the Clippers, the Warriors were playing their guys down the stretch in the last game. The Mavericks were the only team not actively going for a play-in spot. So, which is actually, if you think about it, there was about 10 teams fighting for, between the 2 conferences, the play-in games, roughly 10 teams were fighting for those spots. And the only one that chose the tanking route was the Dallas Mavericks. So I do think it's actually has created more competition. Personally, I do love it. I think the drama is incredible. I mean, like last night, we had potentially LeBron James on the verge of not winning a playoff game, not making the playoffs, and they came back. It was so dramatic. It was such a awesome, highly contested game.
But wouldn't they have been in? Wouldn't they have been in anyway?
Nah, they would have to win the next game. So it would have been, if they lost this one, they would have been.
I meant like if we didn't do the play-in tournament, like I'd have to look up the record, but wouldn't the Lakers have just been one of the 8 teams?
Yeah,
so that's what I'm saying. It's like we don't need this whole Mickey Mouse 9-10 business. Like we don't need Pelicans and
because we need to see these teams push those other teams. It's fun.
They had 82 games to push the other teams. It's a
one and done scenario. We talk about the one and done and how great it is for college basketball. I love the one and done in the NBA. It's fantastic. Pressure
If
of
they do
one
it for a
game,
whole
who's going to
tournament, maybe.
deliver?
If
I
they did it
no,
for all the teams,
I
but
wouldn't want it for the entire
you've had
playoffs.
82 games to say that you're in more than the top half of your
Yeah, but
conference.
look, injuries happen. The Lakers would have gotten
That's
higher than 7 seed. They had to fight
that's a
for it down
season.
the stretch. They had to fight for it down the stretch. The games are dramatic. I mean, these teams want to win these games. They want to win these games. It creates a little bit extra drama, more basketball, which I love. I personally love the play-in tournament. It is fantastic. It's one of the better things the NBA has done. Has created for more competition, more drama down the stretch. I think the Mavericks are an outside example. I
I
think
think
they're more of the minority here. And I am predicting, Tom,
mhm.
all those stats you listed, we're going to have a 7 seed and a 6 seed make it out of the West. I think the Lakers and the Warriors with that playoff experience, they're taking down Lakers. This is my statement, by the way. Lakers will beat the Grizzlies. This is what I have written down for the statement.
Go for
in that playoff series. Memphis runs their mouth. They're the most annoying team in the NBA. I cannot stand the Grizzlies. Maybe it's because I'm a Warriors fan and they want to hate on the Warriors, but Memphis is what? They've made one, and this was, by the way, back when I lived in Arkansas, covered Arkansas sports on the Memphis border, used to run Grizzlies highlights, covered a Grizzlies game. That grit and grind team made one conference final. This current Memphis Grizzlies team has never even made the conference finals. These guys talk as if they're NBA champions. Adams is out. LeBron and Davis are going to cook in the paint. These boys are getting in the paint, and they're going to dominate Memphis. Lakers as a 7 seed will beat the Grizzlies. Warriors as a 6 seed will beat the Kings. Not much travel time for Golden State.
No.
It's going to be these upset teams. We're going to see both the Lakers and the Warriors show up. We're going to have a 6 seed and a 7 seed making the Final Four in the Western Conference. And I, in the words of Bart Scott, cannot wait. Can't wait, baby. Real quick, LeBron James, you talk about. Anthony Davis has been a man on a mission. Right now, this Lakers team, knock on wood, LeBron and Davis are healthy. They still might have the best 1-2 duo in the world. Talking about super teams, I mean, who's better than LeBron and Davis? I don't think there's a better duo in the NBA. We've actually forgotten how great Anthony Davis is when he's healthy. We've almost forgotten how great LeBron is. This guy averaged like 30 points a game this year. It's like we take that for granted. It's unbelievable how good. LeBron is still one of the best players in the world. We want to say LeBron's not a top 5 player. That's total BS. LeBron James is absolutely, easily still a top 5 player. I know the game is about pace. I know there's more possessions. I know stats are inflated, but his numbers right now are better than prime LeBron, which is crazy to think about. The Lakers have 2 incredible players who have been there, done that. I know it's in the bubble. All right, whatever. Let's crucify him for winning a championship in the bubble. They won the NBA championship. That's a dangerous Lakers team. They have the perfect balance of old guys and youth. Austin Reeves, the young buck, he's balling out. So I like the Lakers. By the way, D'Angelo Russell added some 3-point shooting. Lakers will beat the Grizzlies, and I don't know. Look out west. Lakers might be coming this year, Tom Casselman. LeBron might have, Jordan's last dance. This could be LeBron's dance here in these 2023 playoffs.
Nah, LeBron's going to keep dancing until Bronny's in the league. That's what I think is going to happen.
Yeah, but Bronny's getting better and better. So now Bronny might be a lottery pick, Tom. And LeBron may not be in the lottery. So
that's okay.
It's going to be hard.
I mean, like if I'm LeBron James, I know like we're getting a little like off topic here toward the end of the show, but if I'm LeBron James and my goal is to play in the NBA with my son, if he gets picked up by, I don't know, the Houston Rockets or like some team that is just in the dumpster right now,
sure,
I'm still going to go play because guess what? I've already won how many titles? I've already accomplished how many things? Like, it would be a little bit of a farewell tour. It'd be like a little bit kind of off-brand, a little bit weird, but I think we would all totally get that particular storyline, that particular
Sure.
journey in that NBA season. So for me, it doesn't really matter. It matters how good LeBron or how good Bronny James is getting, only insofar that he will actually be an NBA caliber player that's worthy of a
Yeah,
draft pick or something like that.
He's going to be an actual NBA
Yeah.
player. Like Giannis's brothers, they're good basketball players. Look, you're a professional basketball player, but Giannis's brothers probably would not be in the NBA if not for Giannis. LeBron's kid is going to be in the NBA based on his own accord. I'm not saying he's the next LeBron James. I'm not saying he's going to be a Hall of Famer, but
is.
I mean, he is. But like, if you look at what he's doing, Bronny's going to be like at worst a really solid role player. Like he's going to be like in the NBA, I think for a while.
We'll see. All I know is that he's a good shooter. All I know is he's going to get everybody's best shot every single
no doubt
night.
about that.
Poor kid
no
just
doubt
does
about
not
that.
deserve.
He's an NBA player, Tom. I think he's definitely. We'll see just how good he'll be, but I think for me, I'm comfortable saying at worst, Bronny will be a really good 6th or 7th man off the bench. At worst, I think he's going to be a starter. Personally, I'm not ready to say Hall of Fame or All Star yet. You know how much I love making those projections.
Well, at least we have some standards.
But I'm willing to say NBA starter for Bronny. All
right. Well, we ended a little bit far afield on this show, but
that's okay.
But good one this week. We'll be talking about the NBA playoffs, a lot more hoops next week. Big boy hoops now that the March Madness tournament is over, and a quick shout out to the Huskies who won it all last week. Onions, as Bill Raftery would say.
Yeah, that was 2 weeks ago, technically, wasn't it? Or it was last week? No, it's a little over a week because we didn't have a show last week to recap it.
Yes,
good job. Tom Casselman, by the way, won the bracket challenge, but who won it on the ladies' side, Tom? Ladies champion right here. Iowa, baby.
Talk about the whole,
the Caitlin Clark. Talk about
Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, the little feud there.
I'm all right with it. I'm all right with it. Have some fun. Trash talk is part of the game. I mean, the NBA players do it. No one says anything. Let the ladies have some fun. I'm all for it, by the way. All for the trash talk. So that'll do it for us. This show will be back next week. Have a great week, everyone. Thank you for watching and listening. As always, salute your sports. See you guys soon.